The wedding hall fell silent. Every guest turned their head toward the woman standing at table 7. She wore an elegant black gown that fit her like it was made for royalty. Her voice was calm but strong as she spoke words that would destroy everything. "You built your life?" Emma said, her eyes fixed on the bride. "Tell them how you built it, Rebecca. Tell everyone here the truth about how you got where you are today." The bride's face turned white. Her hands began to shake so badly that the microphone in her grip rattled loudly. The gold dress she wore suddenly looked too heavy for her trembling body. "I don't know what you're talking about," Rebecca whispered, but her voice cracked with fear. Emma took one step forward. The crowd leaned in, hungry for what would come next. "Don't you?" she asked. "Let me remind you then. But how did it come to this? How did a woman in a beautiful gown, standing in the middle of Lagos's most expensive wedding, become the center of such a scandal? And who was she really?" Hello family, welcome back. Please take a moment to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. It truly means a lot to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. So sit back and relax as we dive into the story. To understand this moment, we must go back 3 months earlier. Back to when everything began with a simple envelope and a broken heart. Daniel sat in his corner office on the 15th floor. The city of Lagos stretched below him like a kingdom he had conquered. At 32 years old, he owned 3 successful companies. His name was spoken with respect across Nigeria. He had everything a man could want. A mansion in Lekki, luxury cars, designer clothes, a bank account that never stopped growing. Everything except peace in his heart. His secretary knocked softly on the door. "Sir, this came for you by special courier," she said. She placed a cream-colored envelope on his desk. Daniel picked it up. The envelope was heavy and expensive. The kind that cost more than most people earned in a week. He tore it open and pulled out the card inside. His jaw tightened as he read the elegant writing. "Mr. Daniel Thompson is cordially invited to celebrate the union of Miss Rebecca Anderson and Mr. Richard Williams on Saturday, the 24th of June at 4 in the afternoon. Rebecca. Is Rebecca. The woman he had loved with everything in him 3 years ago. The woman who had walked out of his life without looking back." Daniel dropped the card on his desk. His hands trembled slightly. Richard Williams. A man born into wealth who never worked a day in his life. A man who had everything handed to him on a silver plate. "She wants to rub it in my face," Daniel muttered to himself. He picked up the invitation again. The memories came flooding back like a painful river he could not stop. But what had Rebecca done 3 years ago that hurt him so deeply? And why would she invite him to her wedding now? 3 years ago, Daniel had come home to their small apartment in Surulere. He was exhausted but hopeful about his growing business. Then he saw Rebecca's designer suitcases packed by the door. "Rebecca? What's going on?" he had asked, his heart already sinking. "I'm leaving, Daniel," she had said. Her voice was cold like ice. "What? What do you mean leaving?" Daniel's hands trembled as he spoke. Rebecca laughed bitterly. "I'm leaving you for good. I can't do this anymore." "But why? Did I do something wrong?" Daniel's voice broke. "You're broke, Daniel. You're struggling. You're working yourself to death trying to build something that might never work." Rebecca's words cut like a knife. "But the business is growing. Just give me time. I promise things will get better," Daniel begged. "Time?" Rebecca interrupted. "I don't have time to waste. I'm 27 years old. I want to live now, not when I'm old and gray." "But I love you," Daniel whispered, tears filling his eyes. Rebecca picked up her phone. A car horn honked outside. "Love doesn't pay bills, Daniel. Love doesn't buy designer bags or take me to Dubai. Richard can give me everything today. Why should I struggle with you?" Daniel felt his world crashing down. "You've been seeing someone else?" "His name is Richard Williams. Maybe you've heard of him. His family owns half of Victoria Island. Real wealth, Daniel. Not the fake dreams you keep selling." The car horn honked again, more urgently this time. "I have to go." "He doesn't like to wait." Rebecca grabbed her bags. "Rebecca, please," Daniel begged, reaching for her hand. "Don't do this. We can work it out." Rebecca stopped at the door and turned. Her eyes were empty of any love. "Daniel, you're a good man. You work hard. But that's not enough for me. I deserve better. If you walk out that door, don't ever come back," Daniel said, his voice shaking. Rebecca smiled cruelly. "I won't need to. Goodbye, Daniel." She walked out. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. Now, sitting in his office 3 years later, Daniel stared at that wedding invitation. He had built everything he promised. He had the money, the success, and the respect. But Rebecca was marrying someone else. That Thursday evening, Daniel left work early. He needed to clear his head. He walked through the busy streets of Lagos. Car horns blared. Street vendors shouted. The smell of suya filled the air. He was walking past a small beer parlor when he saw her. A young woman sat on the pavement, her back against the wall. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her hair was rough and messy. But what made Daniel stop was her face. She wasn't begging. She wasn't crying. She just sat there staring ahead with eyes that were clear, intelligent, and unbroken. There was something different about this woman. Something that told Daniel she hadn't always been homeless. But who was she? And what would happen when Daniel decided to speak to her? Daniel walked closer to the woman. His heart told him to stop to talk to her. There was something in her eyes that spoke to him. "Excuse me?" Daniel said softly. The woman looked up at him slowly. Her eyes met his without fear or shame. "Yes." "What's your name?" Daniel asked. "Emma," she said simply. Daniel paused for a moment. He knew what he was about to ask was strange. "Can I ask you something?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what you're asking." Daniel appreciated her caution. "I need someone to accompany me to a wedding this Saturday. I'll pay you well. 200,000 naira. All you have to do is come with me, look presentable, and stay by my side." Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't gasp or jump with excitement. "That's a lot of money for just a wedding. What's the real reason?" Daniel was surprised by how direct she was. Most people would have just said yes to that amount of money. "My ex-girlfriend is getting married. She left me for a richer man 3 years ago. I don't want to show up alone." Emma studied his face carefully. Her intelligent eyes seemed to see right through him. "So you want to use me to make her think you've moved on?" "Yes," Daniel admitted. "I know it sounds petty." "It doesn't sound petty," Emma interrupted. "It sounds human." They stood in silence for a moment. The busy Lagos street moved around them, but they were locked in their own moment. "And after the wedding?" Emma asked. "What happens to me?" Daniel hadn't thought that far ahead. "I'll pay you what I promised. And if you need help, a job, a place to stay, I'll do what I can." "I don't need charity," Emma said sharply. Her voice had strength in it. "If you help me, it should be because you choose to, not because you pity me." Daniel nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Emma stood up slowly. Despite her ragged appearance, she carried herself with dignity. Like a queen who had lost her kingdom but not her crown. "I have one condition," Emma said. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "After the wedding, you tell me the complete truth about why this matters so much. No lies. Just truth." Daniel extended his hand. "Deal." Emma shook it firmly. Her grip was strong and confident. "Then we have an agreement, Daniel?" Daniel was surprised. "How did you know my name?" Emma smiled slightly. "You said it when you introduced yourself to your secretary on the phone earlier. I've been sitting here all day. I hear things." Daniel was impressed. This woman was observant and intelligent. She noticed details that most people missed. "When can we start preparing?" Daniel asked. "Saturday morning. 10 o'clock. "I'll be here," Emma said. As Daniel walked away, he turned back once. Emma was still watching him. Her eyes held something he couldn't quite read. Something that told him there was much more to her story than he knew. That night, lying in his empty mansion, Daniel thought about Emma. The way she spoke. The way she carried herself. It all suggested she hadn't always been homeless. Who was she really? What had happened to her? And why did he feel like meeting her would change everything? Friday morning came quickly. Daniel woke up at dawn with his mind racing. He picked up his phone and called his driver, Peter. "Peter, I need you to do something for me," Daniel said. "Yes, sir." "What is it?" Peter replied. "Go to that beer parlor on Broad Street. There's a young woman there named Emma. She'll be sitting on the pavement. I need you to pick her up and bring her to my house." There was silence on the other end. Then Peter spoke carefully. "Sir, are you sure about this? A homeless person?" Daniel's voice was firm. "Yes, I'm sure. And Peter, treat her with respect. She's not just some random person. She's my guest." "Yes, sir." "I'll go now," Peter said. An hour later, Daniel heard his car pull into the driveway. He walked to the front door and opened it. Peter stepped out first, then opened the back door. Emma emerged from the car slowly. Even in her torn clothes and dirty appearance, she moved with grace. She looked around at Daniel's mansion. The white walls. The beautiful garden. The fountain in the front yard. Her face remained calm and composed. "Welcome, Daniel said, walking toward her. Thank you for coming. Emma looked at him directly. Your driver didn't give me much choice. He was very insistent. Daniel smiled apologetically. I'm sorry about that. I just thought you'd be more comfortable staying here before the wedding tomorrow. Comfortable, Emma repeated as if testing the word. I haven't been comfortable in a very long time. Daniel led her inside. The entrance hall was massive. Marble floors, high ceilings, a crystal chandelier hanging above them, expensive paintings on the walls. Everything screamed wealth. Emma walked slowly, looking at everything. She didn't touch anything, just observed quietly. Then she stopped in the middle of the living room and turned to Daniel. This house is beautiful, she said softly. But it feels so empty. Like a museum. Like no one really lives here. Daniel was struck by how right she was. He had never admitted it to himself before. You're right. I'm here alone most of the time. Why? Emma asked simply. Daniel paused. Because I've been so busy building my business and proving myself to the world that I forgot to build a life. Emma nodded slowly. That's sad. What's the point of having all this if there's no one to share it with? Before Daniel could respond, his housekeeper appeared from the kitchen. Mrs. Grace was a kind woman in her 50s with warm eyes. When she saw Emma, her eyes widened with shock. Sir, she exclaimed. Who is this? This is Emma, Daniel said firmly. She's my guest for the weekend. Please prepare the main guest room for her. Make sure she has everything she needs. Fresh towels, toiletries, and clean clothes if we have any that might fit. Mrs. Grace looked like she wanted to protest. She stared at Emma's dirty clothes and bare feet. But she had worked for Daniel long enough to know when his mind was made up. Yes, sir, she said slowly. Right away, sir. Daniel turned to Emma. Mrs. Grace will show you to your room. You can take a bath, rest, and eat something. We'll go shopping tomorrow morning for everything you need. Emma looked at him with those steady, intelligent eyes. Thank you. You're being very kind to someone you barely know. Everyone deserves kindness, Daniel replied softly. But as Emma followed Mrs. Grace upstairs, Daniel wondered what secrets she was hiding. And why did he feel like he was meant to meet her? Mrs. Grace led Emma upstairs to the guest room. When Emma saw it, she stopped walking. She stood in the doorway, staring as if she might be dreaming. The room was large and beautiful. A king-sized bed with white sheets and fluffy pillows. Its own bathroom with a large bathtub. A balcony overlooking the garden. Emma stared at the bed like it might disappear if she blinked. This is all for me, she whispered. Mrs. Grace's expression softened despite her initial shock. Yes, my dear. All for you. The bathroom is through that door. I'll bring you some towels and clothes in a few minutes. Thank you, Emma said quietly. When Mrs. Grace left, Emma walked slowly to the bed. She sat down carefully on the edge. She ran her hand over the soft sheets. She touched the pillows gently as if they were made of glass. Then suddenly tears started falling down her cheeks. Silent tears that she didn't try to stop or hide. She sat there on that beautiful bed in that beautiful room and cried. She cried for everything she had lost. Everything she had survived. Everything she thought she would never have again. 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. That's how long it had been since she slept in a real bed. Since she felt safe. Since she felt human. Downstairs, Daniel sat in his study. He tried to review some business documents, but he couldn't concentrate. His mind kept drifting to Emma. To the mystery of who she really was. His phone rang. It was his best friend, Michael, calling from Abuja. Hey man, how are you? Michael greeted. I'm okay, Daniel replied. How about you? I'm fine. But listen, I heard your ex-girlfriend Rebecca is getting married this weekend. Is that true? Daniel's jaw tightened. Yes, it's true. What? And you didn't tell me? Man, how do you feel about this? That woman who left you when you had nothing, now she's marrying someone who was born rich. I know everything, Michael, Daniel said tiredly. So what are you going to do? Are you going to attend the wedding? Michael asked. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Yes, I'm going with a date. Michael laughed in surprise. A date? Since when do you have a girlfriend? You never go anywhere except the office and home. It's complicated. I'll explain later, Daniel said. If you say it's complicated, this woman must be special. Okay, I'm waiting to hear the full story. But Daniel, let me tell you something serious. What? Daniel asked. That Rebecca? She's not worth all this stress you're putting yourself through. She left you because of money. Right now you have more money than her new husband and you're still thinking about her. Move on, my brother. I have moved on, Daniel insisted. You say you've moved on, but your heart is still carrying her burden. I know you, Daniel. This wedding invitation has hurt you. Daniel couldn't lie to his best friend. Yes, it hurts. Even after 3 years, it still hurts. I understand, but don't go to that wedding and embarrass yourself. Just show your face, eat their food, and leave. Do you hear me? I hear you, Michael, Daniel said. After the call, Daniel sat in silence. Was he making a mistake? Was this whole plan just going to reopen old wounds? Mrs. Grace interrupted his thoughts, knocking on the study door. Sir, I need to talk to you about that girl. What about her? Daniel asked. Mrs. Grace's face was concerned. Sir, when I went back to give her extra towels, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Not soft crying. Serious crying. The kind that comes from someone who has suffered deeply. What pain was Emma carrying? And how would tomorrow's wedding change both their lives forever? Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine streaming through the windows. Daniel woke up early, his stomach tight with nerves. Today was the day. Rebecca's wedding. The day he had been both dreading and anticipating. He showered carefully, shaved, and put on his best suit. A navy blue three-piece that had cost him almost $500,000. Crisp white shirt. Silk tie. Italian leather shoes polished to perfection. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. 3 years ago he couldn't afford a suit like this. Now he owned 20 of them. Around noon, Daniel knocked on Emma's door. Emma, are you ready? The door opened slowly and Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Emma stood there transformed. She wore the black gown they had bought the day before. Elegant. Flowing. Timeless. Her hair had been styled in soft waves that framed her face perfectly. The makeup was subtle but enhanced her natural beauty. Her high cheekbones. Her full lips. Her striking eyes. She wore simple diamond earrings that caught the light. But it wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she carried herself. Her posture was straight. Her shoulders back. Her chin lifted. She looked like she belonged in a palace. Daniel stared at her, completely speechless. Will this do? Emma asked with a slight smile. Daniel finally found his voice. You look absolutely incredible. Stunning. I don't even have words. Emma's smile widened a bit. You don't look bad yourself, Daniel. They drove to the wedding venue in Daniel's black Mercedes. The Williams family estate in Ikoyi was legendary. A massive compound that took up an entire block with high walls and security gates. As they approached the entrance, Daniel saw the other guests arriving. Range Rovers. Mercedes-Benzes. Bentleys. Even a Rolls-Royce. Men in expensive suits. Women in designer gowns dripping with jewelry. The estate entrance was decorated with thousands of white roses and gold ribbons. A red carpet led from the parking area to the main hall. Professional photographers lined both sides. Daniel pulled up and a valet rushed to open his door. Then another valet opened Emma's door. As she stepped out of the car, Daniel watched the reactions around them. Heads turned immediately. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. People stared, whispered, pointed. Who is that woman? Is that Daniel Thompson? She's absolutely stunning. Where did he find her? Daniel walked around the car and offered Emma his arm. She took it gracefully and together they walked down the red carpet. Cameras flashed everywhere. Emma didn't flinch. Didn't look nervous. She simply walked beside Daniel with her head high, a small smile on her face. They found their assigned table near the middle of the hall. As they sat down, more eyes turned toward them. Emma remained perfectly composed. An older couple at their table immediately introduced themselves. Good afternoon. I'm Senator Harris and this is my wife. Daniel Thompson, Daniel said, shaking their hands. And this is Emma. Mrs. Harris studied Emma carefully. My dear, you carry yourself like someone from a good family. How do you know Daniel? Emma smiled politely. We met recently, but it feels like we've known each other much longer. Senator Harris chuckled. Ah, young love. You two make a beautiful couple. The music changed. Everyone stood as the bridal procession began. Bridesmaids in gold dresses walked down the aisle, followed by flower girls scattering rose petals. Then Rebecca appeared. She wore a massive wedding gown covered in crystals and pearls. A diamond tiara sat on her styled hair. Her makeup was dramatic and heavy. The crowd gasped and applauded. Rebecca smiled widely and began walking down the aisle. But then her eyes swept across the room and landed on Daniel's table. Her gaze locked onto Daniel and her smile faltered. Then she saw Emma. Rebecca's face went completely white. Her mouth opened in shock. Her eyes widened with what looked like recognition and fear. She stopped walking for 2 full seconds, staring at Emma. Keep moving. Everyone's watching, the wedding planner whispered urgently. Rebecca forced herself to continue, but her hands trembled so badly her bouquet shook visibly. She kept stealing glances at their table, her smile now forced and fake. Emma sat perfectly still, her face calm. But her eyes locked onto Rebecca with an intensity that made Daniel's skin prickle. Rebecca reached the altar where Richard waited in an expensive white suit. The pastor began the ceremony, but Rebecca wasn't paying attention. Her eyes kept darting toward Daniel and Emma's table. She stumbled over her vows twice, her voice shaky and uncertain. Are you okay? You seem distracted, Richard whispered during the ring exchange. I'm fine, Rebecca hissed back, but she was definitely not fine. The wedding kiss was quick and awkward. Nothing like what a bride should give her new husband. During the reception, as guests enjoyed their meals, Rebecca appeared. She had changed out of her massive wedding gown into a gold cocktail dress. Richard was beside her, his hand on her waist. Daniel, Rebecca said, her voice overly sweet and fake. Thank you so much for coming. Daniel stood and nodded politely. Congratulations, Rebecca. You look beautiful. Rebecca's smile was tight. Thank you. Her eyes moved to Emma and her face went pale again. And who is this lovely lady? Emma stood slowly, gracefully. She was slightly taller than Rebecca in her heels. She met Rebecca's gaze directly, unflinching. I'm Emma. Rebecca stared at her. Have we met before? You look so familiar. Emma tilted her head slightly. Perhaps Lagos is a small world for some of us. People cross paths in unexpected places. Rebecca's breathing quickened. I don't think so. I would remember meeting someone like you. Would you? Emma asked, her voice still calm but with an edge now. People often forget faces when it's convenient for them. When remembering would be uncomfortable. Richard, sensing the strange tension, stepped forward. I'm Richard, the groom. It's nice to meet you, Emma. Emma finally broke eye contact with Rebecca. We met recently. Daniel has been very kind to me. Rebecca grabbed Richard's arm tightly. We should go greet other guests. But we just got here, Richard started. Now, Richard. We need to go now. Rebecca's voice was urgent, almost panicked. She practically dragged Richard away, nearly stumbling in her heels. Daniel turned to Emma. What was that about? She clearly recognized you. Emma sat back down, her face unreadable. Let's enjoy the food. The reception continued with speeches and dancing. But through it all, Rebecca seemed increasingly distracted and anxious. During their first dance, Richard leaned close to her ear. Rebecca, what is going on? That woman with Daniel, who is she? Rebecca's eyes filled with panic. That woman, Richard. I think she's someone from my past. Someone I thought I'd never see again. What do you mean? Who is she? Richard frowned. I can't talk about it here. Not now. Not in front of everyone, Rebecca whispered. But before Rebecca could answer, the MC tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have the bride and groom at the front for their thank you speech? Rebecca walked to the microphone on shaky legs. Richard stood beside her, confused and concerned. Rebecca gripped the microphone stand with trembling hands. Thank you all so much for coming to celebrate with us today. This day means everything to me. I've worked so hard to get here to build the life I have now. Built? A clear, strong voice interrupted from the crowd. The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Every head turned. Emma was standing at her table, her face calm, but her eyes burning with intensity. You built your life? Emma repeated louder. Tell them how you built it, Rebecca. Tell everyone here the truth. The hall erupted in confused whispers. Rebecca's face turned white. Her hands shook so badly the microphone rattled. I don't know what you're talking about, Rebecca stammered. Emma took a step forward. Don't you? Let me remind you. 3 years ago, I worked as a private caregiver for your grandmother, Mrs. Helen Anderson. Gasps filled the room. People started murmuring loudly. Emma continued, her voice clear and steady. Mrs. Helen was a wonderful woman. Kind, generous, loving. She was also very wealthy and very alone because you, Rebecca, had abandoned her for years. That's not true, Rebecca shouted, but her voice cracked. Mrs. Helen loved me like a daughter. I cared for her every single day. And she told me she was going to include me in her will. Not all her money. Just enough to help me start my own business. The room was dead silent now. But then you found out, Emma's voice grew harder. You came rushing back. And when you realized she might leave me something, you destroyed me. You accused me of stealing her jewelry. You said I was poisoning her medication. You called the police and had me dragged out like a criminal. No, Rebecca whispered. You destroyed my reputation so completely that no one would hire me. You made me homeless. I slept on streets. Went hungry for days. All because you wanted your grandmother's money for yourself. Emma reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope. I have proof. Letters Mrs. Helen wrote me. Medical reports. Witness statements. Daniel walked to Emma. She handed him the envelope. He read aloud. My dearest Emma, I know what my granddaughter is doing. She wants you gone because she fears losing her inheritance. But you are more family to me than she ever was. The crowd exploded in shock. Someone shouted, call the police. Within minutes, police arrived. They questioned Emma and examined the documents. Rebecca tried to run, but security blocked every exit. She collapsed on the floor, sobbing. The officers approached with handcuffs. Mrs. Williams, you're being arrested for elder abuse, inheritance fraud, and defamation. As they led Rebecca away, she looked back at Emma. I'm sorry, she whispered. Emma didn't respond. She just watched as justice finally came. Richard stood frozen, staring at the woman he'd just married with horror and betrayal. Daniel put his arm around Emma. It's over. Emma leaned into him, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for believing me. 2 weeks later, Inspector Okafor called Emma. Your name has been officially cleared. All charges dropped. You can work again. Emma cried tears of relief. Daniel was there holding her hand. Over the next months, Daniel helped Emma rebuild. His lawyers helped her sue the agency that fired her. The settlement gave her financial security. Daniel also connected her with a caregiving certification program. Within 6 weeks, Emma earned her advanced certification. But something else was happening between them. They were falling in love. It started with long conversations late at night. With Emma cooking alongside Mrs. Grace, both laughing like old friends. With the way Emma actually listened when Daniel talked about his day. 2 months after the wedding scandal, Daniel found Emma on his balcony looking at the Lagos skyline. He joined her with 2 glasses of wine. What are you thinking about? Emma smiled. How different my life is. 3 months ago I was sleeping on concrete. Now I'm here. My name cleared. My future open. You deserve all of it, Daniel said softly. Emma turned to him. That day you found me, why did you really stop? Daniel was quiet. When I saw you refusing to beg, refusing to break despite having nothing, I saw strength I hadn't seen in anyone. You had nothing, but you still had dignity. You gave me my life back, Emma whispered. No, Daniel said firmly. You gave yourself your life back. You kept those letters for 3 years. You waited for justice. You stood up and told your truth. I just gave you a ride. Emma took his hand. Then thank you for believing me when everyone else called me a liar. Daniel looked at their joined hands. Emma, I think I'm falling in love with you. Emma's breath caught. I'm falling in love with you too. But I'm scared. I have nothing to offer. You're not starting from zero, Daniel interrupted. You're starting from strength. From survival. From truth. That's worth more than anything money can buy. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver ring with a small diamond. A promise ring, Daniel said. A promise that we'll build something real together. That you'll never face the world alone again. Yes, Emma whispered, tears in her eyes. Yes, I want us. 6 months later, Emma had her own apartment and worked as a senior caregiver. She earned a reputation for excellence and kindness. But most nights she stayed at Daniel's house. Felt like home. One evening, Emma returned from the hospital with news. She found Daniel in his study. Daniel, she said softly, I need to tell you something. He looked up from his laptop. What is it? Emma's eyes sparkled with joy and tears. I'm pregnant. With twins. Daniel's face broke into the biggest smile Emma had ever seen. He jumped up and pulled her into his arms. We're having babies? He whispered into her hair. Yes, Emma laughed and cried at the same time. We're having babies. Daniel pulled back and looked into her eyes. Then he got down on one knee right there in his study. Emma, I was going to plan something fancy. But I can't wait another second. Will you marry me? Will you build a family with me? Yes, Emma said without hesitation. Yes to everything. 3 months later, they married in Daniel's garden. It was a small, intimate ceremony with close friends. No expensive decorations. No fancy invitations. Just love and truth and hope. Mrs. Grace cried happy tears throughout the entire ceremony. 4 months after the wedding, Emma gave birth to healthy twins. A boy they named Daniel Jr. and a girl they named Helen, after Mrs. Anderson. As Daniel held his children in the hospital room, looking at Emma glowing with joy and exhaustion in the bed, he whispered, "We made it." Emma smiled, her eyes full of love. "We did. Together." Daniel thought about everything that had led to this moment. Rebecca's betrayal that had broken his heart. The wedding invitation that had filled him with anger. Meeting Emma on that street corner when she had nothing. If Rebecca hadn't left him, he would never have met Emma. If Rebecca hadn't invited him to her wedding, he would never have needed Emma's company. If Emma hadn't suffered, she wouldn't have had the courage to speak her truth. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best things in our lives. Sometimes pain has a purpose we can't see until we're on the other side of it. And sometimes, the person who seems to have nothing is actually carrying everything you've been searching for. Daniel looked at his wife and children and felt gratitude flood his heart. Not just for what he had gained, but for what he had lost that made room for something better. Emma opened her eyes and smiled at him. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that I'm the luckiest man in the world," Daniel said softly. "We're both lucky," Emma replied. "We found each other when we both needed someone to believe in us." Little Daniel Jr. yawned in his father's arms. Baby Helen made a soft cooing sound. And in that hospital room in Lagos, surrounded by love and new life, two people who had been broken by betrayal and hardship finally found their happy ending. Not because someone rescued them, but because they chose to believe in truth, to stand up for justice, and to open their hearts to love again. That is the real victory. Not revenge. Not proving something to the people who hurt you. But healing, growing, and building something beautiful from the ashes of what was destroyed. Rebecca went to prison for her crimes. Richard annulled the marriage and moved on with his life. But Daniel and Emma? They built a life filled with love, laughter, and purpose. Emma continued her work as a caregiver, touching countless lives with her kindness. Daniel expanded his businesses but made sure to come home early to his family. They taught their children about honesty, resilience, and the importance of standing up for what is right. And every year on their wedding anniversary, Daniel and Emma would sit on their balcony overlooking Lagos and remember where they started. From a street corner where a broken man met a homeless woman. From pain and betrayal to love and family. From nothing to everything that truly matters. That is how their story ended. Not with revenge or bitterness, but with forgiveness, growth, and a love built on the strongest foundation of all, truth. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?